webinars, so we want to make sure we capture and we answer some of your questions. So make sure you submit them throughout the event. And to kick us off, I'm gonna hand it over to our board president, Gonez.
Thank you so much, Esme, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kelly Gonez, and I am the proud board president of LA Unified and representative for Board District 6. I have the honor of representing over 165 schools in the East San Fernando Valley. Prior to becoming a school board member, I was a middle school science teacher, served as an education policy advisor in the Obama administration, and in 2017, become the youngest Latina elected to the school board. I am humbled to represent and advocate for our families of the East Valley every day. LA Unified currently operates over 100 schools on the ancestral lands of the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, and our Board District 6 resides entirely on Tataviam ancestral land. As someone who's committed to equity and inclusion, it is so important to me that we tell the stories and uplift the histories of our Native people. Earlier this year, I was honored to bring a resolution that declared LA Unified's official support for the federal recognition of the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians and called on the federal government to grant the long overdue formal recognition. I am thrilled to partner with them today in honor of Native American Heritage Month, so to further share their rich culture and history. Today, you'll learn about the tribe, gain additional resources that you can use for your students, school, and community. To begin, it is a pleasure and honor to introduce Tribal President Rudy Ortega, who will start today's webinar with a land acknowledgement and a song. President Ortega, welcome.
Thank you, Kelly, for that, President Gonez. It's an honor to be on the panel with you. And as President Gonez mentioned, I want to begin with the land acknowledgement and opening a traditional song that my ancestors sang when we travel from village to village, and the villagers of that village would welcome all the villagers traveling into that village and with the song. And the song is Paco, it means enter in our language, and Kima, which means come. So I'll sing that song, but before I do, I just wanted to acknowledge that the space in Los Angeles is shared among many tribes. The western arm of the San Fernando Valley is encompassing of Chumash people, which they're Fernandeño Chumash and Venturino Chumash, which some of the folks are members of my tribe itself, as well as the Gavilan Tongva, which are relatives to me on the east. Traditionally, we will call them Gomi Vitan, people of the east. Today are known as Gavilan Tongva, Gavilan Kish is the people that we share the space in the LAU school district. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge all of their ancestors. Those are multiple villages throughout LA County, LA City, to respectfully respect all of our ancestors of these lands. So with that, I'd like to welcome everybody traditionally with the song. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Ortega, for that powerful land acknowledgement, and what a beautiful song. A great way to start off this webinar. Before we move on to our conversation, I want to quickly mention that for those of you in attendance today, you are eligible to win a free copy of the book, A Coalition of Lineages, the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians by Duane Champagne and Carol Goldberg. We will randomly pick one winner at the end of today's webinar to receive the copy. Additionally, I want to encourage you all to submit questions, any questions that you may have using the Q&A function in Zoom. I know we had some folks submit questions in advance, so we'll start with those, and then we'll get a chance to ask President Ortega more questions at the end of the webinar. And for anyone interested in viewing or sharing today's webinar, this is being recorded and we'll upload it to our YouTube page at the end. We'll make sure to share that link at the end of the event. All right. To open up our conversation today, President Ortega, would you start us off by sharing the origins and story of the first people of the East Valley, the Fernandeño Tataviam Band of Mission Indians?
Yeah, definitely. Before the mission or the Spanish arrived into the area and taken many of these villages into the mission and baptized them. As you can see on the map that's displayed, we have all the villages in red. And each of those villages were autonomous. Individually, they had their own tribal leaders, their captains and sub-captains that ran those villages. So essentially, they were pretty much like mini states, little independently from each other. So technically, those were all essentially tribes in historical times before contact with, before Spanish arrival. So the Northeast Valley area, you can see the villages of Achoycminanga, or Chomkambit, which is the village that's now where Mission San Fernando is located, and Shinanga, which is in the city of San Fernando. And Pacoimabit, Tohuvit, Mohuvit, those are the other traditional names right in the northeast area of the valley. And those villages were important. They all had, again, they had their own culture, they had their language or dialects. That they communicated with each other, areas that they traded. So these were essentially, the villages that were encompasses. And as far as my tribe being at Mission San Fernando, and Mission San Fernando plays a very pivotal point in the role of our identity. Today, the tribe uses the name Fernandeño still. And that's what, again, a lot of these villages, that's in the greater scope of this map that you see all the ways into the northern portion of Los Angeles County. They would march and take into Mission San Fernando and pretty much gotten the identity as Fernandeño. But as far as this area in the Northeast, in this district area, those are the villages that we see today, and many of those folks that we acknowledge today, especially Pasinga, which is the village of San Fernando that we acknowledge a lot, and to the point that today the tribe has a company called Paisiki, in honor of Pasinga village itself.
Wow, thank you so much for that just introduction to the tribe and to the many villages that were here pre-contact with European folks. And interesting that some of the names of the villages carry on and with Pacoima, Tahunga. Is that a correct interpretation of this?
Yeah, no, definitely. Pacoima, was a traditional village. Now we have Pacoima, which is now the township in the city of Los Angeles. Tahunga, is still there, and so some of those names did carry over, and that it's stuck. And those are the traditional words of our tribe and of our people. So we're pleased to see the identity. One thing is many folks confuse those words to be Spanish origin. But in truth, their origin to the native soil and land of the people here.
Absolutely. And in terms of centering our students in their communities and understanding these connections to the first peoples of the East Valley, I think it's really powerful. We're turning to our next question now. Who is the tribe today?
Yeah, that's a good question. The tribe today, and as I briefly discussed earlier, with all the villages that surrounded the mission of San Fernando, and as I mentioned, Mission San Fernando played an important role of our identity. It's something that we can't refuse who we are. It is history. And our people were taken to Mission San Fernando, where they were baptized with their first name and given that name as Mission Indians in San Fernando, Fernandeño. So today, the tribe has its headquarters, as you can see in the image there, in the city of San Fernando, where we manage our tribal administration. The tribe is still seeking federal acknowledgement, as you mentioned, President Gonez, that you gracefully supported us on our efforts to gain acknowledgement. But the tribe has always advocated for that acknowledgement of presence, of existence, and continued existence in this community and as our tribal nation of our lineages. So today, the tribe is only a state acknowledged tribe that works with multiple state agencies in the state of California and works with other local governmental agencies as well here in LA County. but it's pursuing federal acknowledgement so that we can uplift the narratives of the tribe. Today, the tribe has over 800 people enrolled in the tribe. From all those villages, there's only, again, this is a very small number. Each villages would have covered between 30 to 80 people, folks of those villages. And if you multiply all those villages, there's 26 villages that should have been here today with our tribe, unfortunately, are not. And with those numbers that dwindle down, we're only over 800 people enrolled in the tribe today. Well, the tribe has multiple programs, as you can see, in different branches. We have a legislative branch that we call the Tribal Senate that writes our governing laws, reviews multiple things to bring into our tribal community, strategizes with our executive branch, where the executive branch executes the daily activities of our administration and programs for our community and the communities around us. Just like in this pandemic today that we've been going through in the last few years, we've rushed to provide food, not just to our own people, but to the neighbors who reside in our Northeast Valley. And even to the point of providing vaccines to them, because we know it's a useful tool to fight against what we're dealing with COVID. And then we have a council of elders where they provide the guidance of our leadership. They make sure that there's that connection, that wisdom, that expertise of knowledge that they bring into this community, into our tribal leaders to enact the heartness of what we're here for and why we're here for and what our ancestors, our memory of what our ancestors have been struggling with. So those are the key elements, what the tribe is today and what we're building for tomorrow. But we're here in the city of San Fernando, right across from San Fernando City Hall, and we're proudly here. And one thing I gotta bring up is, in 1890s, my tribe should have been acknowledged by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and unfortunately, due to the political climate of Charles McClay, the next senator of California, the tribe wasn't made into a federally acknowledged tribe because we couldn't maintain the land that was rightfully given to us. Had those land transferred into trust, the tribe would be in a different story today. We would be acknowledged. And programs and anything else that we've been mentioning would have been in a different scope. But in that time of when we were there, my great-grandfather, Antonio Maria Ortega, was only 18 years old when he was standing beside our tribal leader, Rogelio Rocha, where McClay had asked the county sheriffs to remove our people from our lands. And that's devastating. And that has affected us over 120 years today that we're still unacknowledged, the impact that made to us. And so it's important that we remember that story, we recite that story, because that gave us the strength and the endurance to continue moving forward and to make sure that our people is continuing to be known today. So that's who we are today as a tribe, and what we pursued and grow in our tribal community, and how we support our surrounding communities as well.
Thank you so much for walking us through that. I know there's a couple clarifying questions in the chat, so I'll just pull those up right now while we're on the topic. So I think there was a question around the number of originally known tribes, if you could repeat that number for us.
Well, in Mission San Fernando, the full number was over 100 villages that were identified on the mission register books. But for our tribe, what we identified is 26 villages that we have close, either direct vicinity or a relationship to a village. So 26 villages that is affiliated with our tribe today.
Okay, thank you so much. And then I think the other question for this portion is, what was the tribal population at European contact? The year 1700 is identified. Well,
the number that I don't have at the top of my head as far as for our tribal nation, but as I mentioned, each village were between 30 to 80, 90 people. And so if there was approximately 26 lineages, you can multiply that an average of maybe 55 people over 26 villages. That would have been our lineage population at that time of the Spanish arrival.
Got it. So the villages were smaller groups of people.
Right.
And I really, it's helpful to see just on the slide that the tribe as a sovereign entity, has its own governance structure, and there are some parallels, but important differences between that of the U.S. And thank you also for uplifting the federal recognition and why that is so important, and the unfortunate legacy of Charles McClay. And I know that's a conversation we're continuing to have as a school district, grappling with that legacy and repairing those harms.
Right.
So let's move on to our next question. I know we have more questions to get to in the chat as well. What are the ways that your tribe continues to advocate for Fernandeño Tataviam visibility and uplifting the stories of the Native community?
There's many things that we do to bring that forward. And the good thing is that we have a lot of people who are cultural bearers who continue to go out there and share traditional stories, songs, and education from all different sectors, from the nonprofits to elementary schools to colleges. We continue to share that information and the presence that we're still here in existence. But what the tribe has done more is that we advocated for an educational grant that we provide educational program, after school educational programming to Native youth in the LA County, and bring in the history, not just of our tribe, but also the fact that there's many other tribal nations here in Los Angeles, and making sure that they are included in the curriculum and education, and understanding that there's a lot of tribes in Los Angeles, not just my tribe, but many other tribes that share the space as well. The tribe has created a nonprofit called Paku Culture Community Services that back in the 70s, my father and many other elders who now left this place and gone to another spot, in our hearts, and they created a nonprofit to provide scholarships. And today we continue to award scholarships in my father's name and many other leaders in our tribe and people who made an impact in our community as well. All the ways to nutrition programs, youth diversion program that our nonprofit Paku Culture Community Services provides. So these are just an example of what the community does and provides with our tribe, what we go out there and continue to educate. But more than anything else is we always come back to this federal acknowledgement, because acknowledgement, many people say you're not an Indian unless you come from a federally recognized tribe. And there's many laws that go around where they protect Indian people. And the fact of carrying eagle feathers for ceremony, you have to be from a federally recognized tribe. Selling your artwork, if you're an artist, you have to be registered with a recognized tribe. So those are things that has challenged our people because they carry eagle feathers for ceremony, myself included. But we have artists in our community, in our tribe, that sell their artwork and that were charged with fees and fines from the federal government for not selling the artwork as Indian people, where the government said you aren't because you're not from a federal recognized tribe. So that acknowledgement is a big piece. And so what we always have to do is advocate for it, speak to the state, ask for like state acknowledgement, bring the inclusion to that commission, so that Heritage Commission, that they identify our tribal people, and continue to bat to whatever needs to bring forward as that our tribe is still in existence, we're still here, and we're still pursuing, the fact that our culture and history and legacy needs to continue on to our next generations. So by working with our neighbors, which is everyone in LA, in the Northeast Valley, and throughout the San Fernando Valley, Santa Cruz Valley, where the tribal villages of our ancestors are from, we are continuing educating, reaching across the bridge to talk to our local governments, understanding each other, and coming to the table and have the proper conversation and dialogue. So that's what the tribe does today, to advocate for the voice of our people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. And just incredibly powerful advocacy that you all continue to lead and support for youth and for your community. On just the federal recognition piece, and I really appreciate you digging into that a little bit more and why that's so consequential and impactful for the members of the tribe. I see some messages of solidarity in the chat. What can non-Native folks do to work in solidarity with you all to help attain that federal recognition? Do you have any recommendations for how others can help advocate as well?
Yeah, one thing it's informing the people. I mean, myself, as being a Native person, I'm a member of the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission and many other spaces where Native people are at, but we tend to be in this bubble. What we'd like to see is the folks that are on this Zoom that know us, share the information that there's a tribe in Los Angeles, multiple tribes in Los Angeles. Find out what ancestral villages that you live on, acknowledge that village, not just the tribe, but the village, and as well as that tribe that it's registered to. And also visit our websites. We have a website, tataviam.us, and through that site we have products. We have a coloring book that we sell. We have our own book that's provided by Dr. Champagne and Carol Goldberg on the Coalition of Lineages. Understand and read it so they can learn more about our tribal nation, the history that we've gone through to be here today, to stand here beside you as a neighbor. Those are the things that we would like to see folks do. Is really the word of mouth is the greatest power, to tell people, hey, did you know there's a tribe here? Take a look at their website and purchase something from us, because there's things in our site that we sell. But not only that, we have 2 nonprofits. You can contribute to our nonprofits. We have PACU that provides social program to the Native community, the Indigenous community. We went further to include the people who are south of the border, because we identify that their struggle is similar to our struggle here in the States. And then we have the Tataviam Land Conservancy. That's important because as a non-recognized tribe, all these villages that we're trying to preserve and protect, we don't have rights to it. And then when it goes into open space, sometimes, a lot of times actually, I should say, we're prohibited to do our own ceremonies on those lands. So the tribe came up with our own conservancy so that we can move these much precious lands that we know and that is sacred to us, religious to us. It's our church and temple that we can go and put it into this conservancy and then advocate for that, so that we can now control it and provide the cultural training, the cultural dances and ceremonial, religious ceremonies that we do as a tribal nation. Now we have a space to go. And so that's what we created that conservancy for. So those are the things that I encourage folks that are listening on or joining us on the Zoom to go learn who we are as a tribal people. Go to our website and visit our multiple organizations that we created so that we can sustain and build a community and be that neighbor, that good neighbor that's living beside you in these areas.
Thank you so much. So there are ways that folks can support by educating themselves and learning about the histories of Native peoples where they live, but also material ways to support the tribe and ensure that the good work that you all do can continue. I know we have a lot of great questions in the chat, so let's turn to those. And thank you so much, President Ortega, for all that you've shared so far. So we've gotten a couple of questions around an upcoming holiday, Thanksgiving, which will be acknowledged in a couple of weeks. Sort of what are some ways that the tribe acknowledges or celebrates Thanksgiving, and any recommendations for how educators can be thoughtful about that holiday moving forward?
Yeah, first of all, I like to say, because I've been asked this question for a long time, and early on in my younger years, I'll be more of a fighter, like, hey, this is not our holiday kind of thing. But look at it, everyone works all year round, and to take time off to spend with family, it's important. You take a break from the hustle and bustle, and as tribal people, we enjoy that too. But Thanksgiving as a holiday, the way it's perceived and it's marketed in the marketing world, and put out there in newspapers and get people to sell and buy turkeys and do all the stuff, that isn't us. There wasn't this Pilgrims and Indians kind of story, and my tribe definitely doesn't do that. We don't put out a table and say, hey, we're providing the Indian and Pilgrim story here. What we do is that we do celebrate it. We understand the importance of feeding our families and the importance of coming together as families and celebrate a time of life. And that's what we do as our community. In fact, years ago, back in the 90s, the tribe always had to celebrate our winter solstice. We've always come together and provide food. And traditionally and respectfully, that's more of our Thanksgiving. It is our culture that we have pajas, which are silk captains. These pajas were the ones that would come together when everyone had traditionally harvest and gather and hunted food, brought together, make sure that all the families had equal portions of food for the winter to come. Because we didn't know how rainy it's going to be, how cold it was going to be, and how scarce or how hard it's going to harvest and hunt. Right, so that was our tradition, and that is much like the Thanksgiving that we celebrate. It was that harvesting time, the end of the harvesting time, where we had a huge feast. The tribe had continued to do it today. We call it winter social gathering. But on Thanksgiving, time, we still had that big heart. My father used to provide turkeys, and many of my family members in the tribe still come out and provide turkeys to the families that aren't able to put a turkey on their table or to put food on their table. And sometimes this is the best meal that they have all year round. But not only that, we want to make sure that it continues forward, not just that one time, but that's how we essentially celebrate this holiday as families. It's just a time to come together. It's not an Indian pilgrim kind of thing. It's really about families reconnecting, having the time, breaking away from everything else, and enjoying life and understanding why we're here together in this world. And that's what we do as our families.
That's so insightful. And I mean, thank you. I think Lucia was one who put this in the chat, an educator around wanting to make sure that, we're respectful about how Thanksgiving is treated. And I really appreciate you sharing kind of the way that it's been reclaimed and connected back to the traditions of solstice and harvest and that feeling of family and togetherness and providing for one another. Okay, so a lot more great questions in the chat. A number of different questions from educators who are joining us tonight about opportunities to partner with local schools, both around teaching of the history of our Native peoples, but also around tribal music and Indigenous language. So any thoughts you have or partnership opportunities for our local schools?
Yeah, I think the partnerships, is really, there's only so much bandwidth that we can go. I would say, yeah, invite us into your classroom, but we definitely don't have that bandwidth to do that to all the schools. And be open-minded and allow the tribal people to come and really share the true history of our culture and what we can share with the public as well. But I do encourage reaching out to the different tribal nations. And again, I'll go back to visit our website. We have a wonderful workbook that has our language in there. It's a children's workbook. It teaches the children how to say hello and goodbye in our language. So it's a fantastic thing, and there's many different words there. But really just encourage, the true meaning and the respect of Indian people. A lot of times, a lot of schools just have a picturesque of what was once before. And many of our tribal students, Native students, are in your schools. And so they go to McDonald's, they go to your school, they wear regular jean pants, so it's important to keep that open mind as well, that, the kids are there and we want to share the rich culture. But one of the biggest things is always with permission, reach out to the tribes, see if there's a cultural bearer that's available, willing, or video. There's multiple videos on our website that they can easily display and share, and it will be able to explain a lot of the history of the tribe itself. So, things like that, I think I encourage them to do that. And then there's, again, a lot of tribes has different things, so reach out to those tribes. If it's venturing to Chumash, Gabriel, Tonga, my tribe, I encourage you to reach out and understand their worlds as well.
Thank you so much. That's great information, and we'll make sure to uplift the websites that you have shared again and again so that educators know where to turn for more information. I think you answered this question, President Ortega, but I'll just double confirm. Do you or members of your tribe come out to speak at schools? There's an effort around ensuring all of our high school students have access to ethnic studies courses, which includes Native American studies, and some folks in the chat think it would be a great opportunity to hear from the Fernandeños about your history as part of that work.
We've done that, and we've gone out to schools. Like I said, we don't have the bandwidth to go to each individual schools. And a couple of years ago, we teamed up with CSUN in Northridge, and we brought our elders, our storytellers, our singers, and many other folks. And San Manuel does this annually, where they bring local schools and they have the kids visit that campus. So it's a two thing. One, they visit a college that's in our neighborhood. Two, they learn about the tribal histories of the tribes. So we invited the Chumash people. In fact, we invited Assembly Member James Ramos when he was Board of Education for San Bernardino colleges. So he came out from San Manuel and he spoke to our people and our students here. So that was one fantastic way. I like to see LAUSD provide that, and maybe that's a partnership that we could do. In fact, I'm also part of my tribe, is part of the Indigenous education now, where we're talking about this type of programming, that we can bring more Indigenous programming to the community, and what those efforts look like. And I engage in those conversations, and we have some of that we've done in the past with my tribe, as I mentioned at CSUN. So that would be a wonderful program where we can definitely have a curriculum around more tribal history, learning about the different dialects of languages that are here in LA County, in the first village and the first people. But also, more importantly, a good program that it's a twofold, right? You bring them onto a nearby campus, a college campus, these students from, elementary to high school, and they get to meet, tribal people and learn about the tribal culture from these people as well.
I love that. Well, I think, we're always willing to partner. I think that that's a great idea. And obviously, just based on the interest from the folks on this webinar, there is the desire to bring that type of programming to our schools. A couple of specific follow-up questions. In the links that you all shared, President Ortega, we've got some specific requests around from music teachers around the integration of tribal music. Would they be able to find more information on that on your website, or what would you suggest? And would special permissions need to be obtained to perform tribal music by non-tribal members?
Yes, there's a protocol among tribes that, because a lot of these songs are ancient songs and they're passed down from family to family. So they're family songs that only are sang with those family people. And then other songs are shareable. There's some few songs that we're able to share. Just recently, my tribe received a generous grant from the California Arts to provide language, music songs that we're teaching our children here in the tribe. But we're also working to provide a song that we can share publicly that the public can learn in the songs. Because as we went out to schools, and every time I speak, there's a couple of schools in your district, President Gonez, that I have my heart for, because they're in the city of San Fernando, and I go there, and these children, there are 3 classrooms, so 90 children roughly that attend, and we teach them a song and that we gift them, and they pick it up right away. So definitely, I don't know, you have to reach out to the tribe. My tribe, we're still working on it. I wish I could say, yes, we have a song for you, but we're still working on it. But definitely that's the goal that we're trying to achieve, and be able to share a song that everyone who's non-tribal could sing the song freely, so that they learn the song from us. But we want to make it a fun song, and a song that can be freely shared.
Absolutely. Super helpful information. I think there's a couple of questions in the chat also about Mission San Fernando and the Catholic Church, and kind of just the really painful legacy that's associated there. And obviously Mission San Fernando as well is kind of a big landmark in the community. It's on like the Mission Hills Neighborhood Council banners. I know when everyone's getting their quince photos, you do it there. And sort of kind of what is the relationship with Mission San Fernando as well as with the Catholic Church? And what would you like to see in terms of those entities really grappling with that history and that legacy of pain?
We'd like to see what beginning of the start of it changed. If you talk about the change of time and change of practice of religion of people, it began when the Spanish arrived here, right? So they stopped us from practicing our own songs and dances and pretty much of our language to learn Catholicism and move into that space there. So that changed it. And when I was younger and I stood beside my father and we came up to the bicentennial time of the celebration of the mission, we were invited at that time, Richard Lacuna was council member for Los Angeles City. And I thought that we were able to be amicable and come to the mission, have conversation about what the tribe would like to do at ceremony to honor our ancestors, and then what the mission wanted to do to celebrate its celebration of this bicentennial. Unfortunately, it was in the papers and everything. It didn't go out right. Monsignor Weber, who's still there now, retiring, stormed out of the room because the tribe wanted to do a cultural ceremony for our ancestors that are buried behind the mission church. There's over 2,000 people there. And some of my elders remember exactly where they were buried before they re-landscaped the church back behind the church. So we had that, passionately before us. So it's continued to be there. Over the years, though, we've been, again, the best way is to sit down at the table and bring ideas. So we've been speaking to the Archdiocese, and now they're looking at how do we change it and how do we incorporate and how do we tell more of the story of the tribe? As painful as it is, because we say one side of the story, but we're not saying the other side of the story. And if you walk through Mission San Fernando, I think there's only about 4 places that you can see that there's history of my tribe there. Only 4 announcements, 4 items there. There's many artifacts throughout Mission San Fernando, but they're not of my tribe. They don't talk about the history of the tribe, other than that there is a Fernandeño tribe. But other than that, and then there's one marker that I believe that was done by the Rotary or the women of the Golden West that made a marker that named the village that was there, Achoycuminanga. Outside of that, there's no other mention of the village. So we want to repair that. We want to bring truth. We want to bring light of information. You know, what has been done has been done. And many of us became Catholics. And many of us in my tribe still are Catholicism. You know, and I don't denounce anyone. You know, I'm not a Christian or Catholic, but there's many people are. And the same time as I share the space with them, they're still tribal. And then they still attend the church. And I realized that a few years back that, you know, we're all here on this planet. We need to live beside each other. And the only way to move forward peacefully is to give everyone the respect, right? And so that's what we were trying to do today. So today the tribe is working with our diocese, where about 3 years ago, we signed the 17 protocols to, you know, allow the tribe to be native person and go to Catholic church and then come back and practice ceremony, be with the tribal community, but also to go to these areas that are sacred to us, like the mission. So like for that, my tribal people should be able to go to the mission without a charge, but yet we're still faced with that. If I walk in the mission, even though with my title and my name, and even though I know that my senior Weber, I still get charged for it. And those are still things that we're still working at with Mission San Fernando. It's not perfect, it's not beautiful, but I'm not going to say it's horrible. I mean, it's something that we still need to be worked on. And hopefully from understanding with the archdiocese, we're moving that step to correct that and moving that step to have a better relationship with one another. But that's where it stands today. So after, 200 years or more, we're still kind of in that little hate and love relationships with Mission San Fernando.
Well, I mean, I know that, you know, that's an area of trauma and pain. And so I really appreciate you helping us understand that context more and the ways in which the tribe continues to advocate. And again, ways that I think the non-native people who are joining us today might be able to help and amplify and be accomplices in this work. And the need to reckon with a historical truths and make sure all sides of history are told, I think is a really powerful message, especially just given what we're seeing in the country today and a reluctance to do that. A few more excellent questions as well. A question from Lucy around how can people learn to live better within the land? First, of course, is federal recognition, then what?
You know, how do we better live with the land? I think we're seeing it right in California. We know that we're in drought year after year, and it's getting worse. And my tribe's involved with the governor's, 30 by 30 climate program. So what we're realizing is that, when I have an elder in my tribe who's always voicing that, we need a nursery with native California plants. And his vision for that is it's coming forward. We're working towards that on a daily basis to bring that forward. And the reason why is that if we have more native plant species throughout Los Angeles, they use less water. So that's one thing. How do we live better is understand the land, understand the thirst of the land as well, the importance of that and how we give back to the land. And then federal acknowledgement, if the tribe achieves federal acknowledgement, it gives us a little bit breathing room, truthfully. And I know quite a few federally recognized tribes, even though they have federal status, some of these chairmen from those tribes says the battle doesn't end. They're constantly, at a level of protecting their sovereignty, protecting their land rights, protecting their water rights. So it doesn't end. It just gives them an area for their people, as I mentioned earlier, who are artists, who are these different spaces, to really check up the box that you're Indian. That's what federal acknowledgement, really gives. And then the fact of our tribe to really grow and self-sustain itself. Today in the state of California, if you look up the book, there's no mechanism for a state tribe like mine to operate financially. We have to conform ourselves as a nonprofit. And that's shameful. That's belittling us. As a tribal nation, that's a nation, it's a government. And if you're pursuing federal acknowledgement and you go and you say, well, we the only way that we can open up a bank account is that we had to become a 501c3 or C4. So we had to, it's like telling the United States, well, we want you to become part of the United Nations, but we first want you to first check off this box to become a charitable organization. The government, US government would laugh, right? So that's what we're asking for, is that respect. And so in the state of California, there's no true mechanism, even though we say we're state recognized, there's no true mechanism of a state acknowledgement process or how do state recognized tribes self-sustain themselves. That's the challenging piece.
And just on the topic of federal recognition, there was a follow-up question about what stands in the way of federal recognition, and again, can people outside the tribe help with advocacy in any way? Are there people we can call, write letters to, emails, anything?
The federal acknowledgement is one of those processes. It's either you go through a congressional method, next Congress to recognize the tribe, or you go through the administrative decision where you go through and you provide all your genealogy, your history of your tribal nation. And that's what we're going through right now. So that's a costly effort. The tribe has earned and raised its own funding where it's over $2.5 million to go after federal acknowledgement. And that's a heavy cost because you have to bring in a team of historians, anthropologists, sociologists, genealogists to write your history and put it before the federal government so they can grade it and see if it meets the merits of a recognized tribe or as a tribal nation itself. So that's what the process we're going through at this current stage. What can really be helpful? I still have invoices that are coming in from my team, writing our narrative to make sure that it passes the standard of the Office of Federal Acknowledgement under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. A kind contribution, but to our efforts would be a support. Right now, we do have over 26 legislators who signed on, including the County of LA supports. It stands with us for federal acknowledgement, as well as you, President Gonez, and LAUSD. So I'm pleasing with that. And many community members has written a letter, but we're at that stage where it is a merit place, and so we have to hire that historian and those individuals that will put all our history. So like the book that Carol Goldberg and Dr. Champagne wrote, essentially getting that book, which is our petition, to be quite honest, almost, and filing to the federal government in the format that the government wants to see it in, and so those who are planners or getting permits to remodel their homes, you all know how the permit process works with the government. Just look at that as a permit process for me to be Indian as a tribe. It's kind of embarrassing, but that's the thing that we have to go through.
It is, and it's so ironic for the federal government has caused so much harm to Native peoples throughout history and ongoing, and for them to be the ones to decide how you can as a tribe identify. Right. And there was a question if is our congressional member supporting you all in federal recognition?
No, we not the local congressional member. We spoke with him. I haven't gotten his full endorsement yet, but I know that other members in Congress are watching and standing by to support us as well.
Maybe getting the whole LA delegation on board could be a step forward as well, especially given the prominence of some of those members.
Yes, most definitely. It'll help, and it would drive the intention to make sure that they continue looking at our petition to move it forward.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're getting close on time. I think we'll take just one last question. I think there was a question around, do you have any upcoming tribal events that celebrate your culture that are open to the public that people might be able to attend?
Coming immediately, unfortunately not, because of the pandemic. We partner with Heart Powwow, which is in Santa Cruz Valley. So next year we postponed it this year, but next year we plan to have that powwow relaunched off, and also again visit our websites, because there's time to time we We have a center in Angeles Forest, which is called Haramakna, and sometimes we do something up there. It really depends, what's happening. We're watching COVID right now and making sure the safety and how we, maneuver through these times today. But definitely next year, it looks like it's going to be better, and we should have a lot of programs coming up for the public as well.
Okay, fantastic. Something to look forward to. Well, just to close out, thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful questions. Stay tuned because we still have the book giveaway coming up, so don't drop off just yet. You can really help us keep this history alive and share this knowledge with your children, your students, friends, family, community. President Ortega, maybe just one more time, tell our viewers where they can learn and get more information in some of those resources that you mentioned today.
Sure. If you visit our website, which is shown right here, Tataviam, TATAVIAM-MSN.us, and you can gather, merchandise there, learn about history, go navigate through a lot of videos, and also we have an events page for those that are interested in some of the events that are maybe coming up on the following year. And we do have a lot of volunteer program. In the photo, we have a traditional sweat house built there. We asked the community to help us build this village. It's in Piru area, is in Rancho Cumulos. So we will look for those volunteers as well. The other website that's there is tamit. It's been son in our language, CAMIT.education. That's our education program, our education department. And they too also have other programs at times that are open for the public. There I would visit more because they do have some workshops that are currently happening, either a hiking or a Zoom information, guest speaker. So I would encourage you to visit that site quite frequently to see what's more upcoming. And if you go through our tribe's website, we have our Puku website linked on there too, which is pukuu.org. They themselves has other programs and other activities occurring, so I encourage you to visit those websites as well.
Okay, and Will, I know there have been some questions about getting, I know the links aren't clickable in the chat necessarily, but we'll make sure to send out an email to everyone who signed up for this webinar, make sure everyone gets the links that have been shared so that you can check out these resources. All right, let's find out who is the winner of our book giveaway. A drum roll. Today's winner will receive a copy of the book Coalition of Lineages, written by Duane Champagne and Carol Goldberg, which covers the tribe's history. And our winner today is Carol Vitolo. Carol, I believe you're with us. So if you wouldn't mind, we will email you to get your mailing information so that you receive your book, and congratulations and thank you for joining us. Finally, to everyone, I know that this could have gone on for much, much longer, but thank you for sticking with us for almost the entire hour. Thank you so much, President Ortega and your whole team, for all of this incredible information you've shared and helped us really be thoughtful about the Native peoples whose land we reside on. I don't know if you have any closing words, President Ortega, before we wrap up and say thank you to everyone.
I just want to say thank you in Occupy in our language. Just thank you for the time you've given us space here. And thank you to everyone who's joined us this evening to learn a little bit more about my tribe. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Thank you, everyone. And we wish you a wonderful evening.
Good night.